Coverkillernation here, realizing that I have sort of abandoned my alternative week idea, but I'm going to actually reclaim it. And I'm going to reclaim it with a 2011 release, and that's going to be the album Chuckles and Mr. Squeezy. Yeah, great title, right? By the band Dredg. Now, if you guys are unaware who Dredg are or what they're all about, they're an experimental, very artsy, alternative rock group. And this will be their 5th release, and this release is going to be a little bit more of a unique and a little bit more true to form to the whole alternative week theme. Not only because of their artistic approach towards the genre of music, alternative or rock music, but also because of who they have at the production helm, and that being Dan the Automator, who of course is famous for his work with members, or with, should I say, bands or groups such as DJ Shadow, or with Mike Patton with his Peeping Tom project. In fact, he and Mike Patton supposedly and rumored to have a project of their own brewing. So this is kind of going to be an interesting and very sonic experiment done by Dredg, and it is certainly one that, well, suits that particular description almost perfectly. This is an album that is, well, very well produced. In fact, I have kind of a problem with that. I think that this album might be a little bit too well produced, to the point where it might be a little bit overproduced, where a little bit of the creativity that you are used to seeing with Dredg and hearing in their music is a little bit absent on this particular work. There's a lot of things that are very much aided by Dan the Automator's production talent. However, it seems that the band has decided to reformat everything a little bit and really use and get their money's worth with his production capabilities. You're going to see a lot of things that kind of remind you of a little bit more of what's not so much considered mainstream, however, definitely more of that indie approach, a little bit more of that DIY feeling that you get. However, it's done with a very, very rich format where you can definitely hear just little things that you're not used to hearing with Dredg. With Dredg, you're kind of a little bit more in tune with the experimentation. You're used to very artistic, very kind of hard to place musical elements. And that, while it is still here in a very small degree, as I just mentioned, it's in a bit of a smaller, there's a smaller canvas here. However, this is not an album that's not devoid of its creative leaps, not to mention its diversity. This is an album where there's a three-track little cycle right in the middle of it, starting with the Ornament, where you can see, I guess you could say, a very softer and almost ballady type song in the Ornament, which I still consider to be kind of a highlight of the album. And then you go into what I would consider to be one of the most radio-accessible Dredg songs that I've ever heard, and that's The Thought of Losing You, which just so happens to be the very first single off of this album. And I think that this has a real large radio capability here, because this is a very radio-friendly song that I think, if given and delivered to radio stations and played on, whether it be like a Pick of the Litter, which is the show here locally that samples new music, or whatever it is in your area, I think you would see a lot more people giving it the thumbs up than the thumbs down. This is very accessible. Not to mention, it is also very good. It's something that a lot of people will find very appealing. And then you go to the very next track, which reminds me a little bit more of the folky side. So you got kind of a night and a day and kind of a middle ground in 3 specific tracks, which you're a little bit more used to. You're a little bit more used to that creativity kind of flowing from track to track, each one of them kind of representing an individualized piece of art from the band. I just don't see it as much on this particular record. I hear a lot more of the tracks kind of blending together a little bit, and as I said, it sounds a little overproduced. Now, as far as, say, their 2009 effort was concerned, I really enjoyed that album a lot. I think that that was a creative, monumental piece of work. With this one, I think it's actually a step backward as opposed to a step forward. And I'm not going to put that completely on the production, and I'm not going to put that completely on the band. I'm going to put it on kind of a combination of all things, and I can't get into this completely and wholeheartedly. So this is an album that unfortunately is going to just drone on and get itself about a 6.5 out of 10. This is something where if you're a Dredg fan, there's probably something in here for you. In fact, there's probably a lot of things in here for you, but maybe not as much as you're used to. For those people who are non-Dredg fans that are maybe looking for an album to serve as a starting point for them, I don't think this album really is going to be that starting point. I think you're going to want to go a little bit further back if you really want to see Dredg at their most experimental, not to mention Dredg at a better point in their career. I don't necessarily think this is a great starting point. You may disagree, but that's how I feel. Cover Killer Nation saying, Chuckles and Mr. Squeezy. The fuck? Clown? I don't know.